You ever watch someone destroy their whole career faster than it takes to sign a check? That's how it all began. A cold Tuesday morning at the West Haven branch of Guardian State Bank. I rolled in right as the doors opened, just an old man, in a wheelchair. The morning sun spilled across the polished floors like golden syrup. Staff were still fumbling with their badges, sipping bad coffee, while a few early customers hunched over their phones, pretending not to notice me. I'm Elliot Dandridge, 63 years old, gray windbreaker, ball cap pulled low, face like carved granite, the kind of man no one gives a second glance unless he's in their way. I rolled a slow circle through the lobby, taking in the air, toner and cheap cologne, a whisper of lemon-scented polish. Then I approached the front desk. Behind the counter stood Megan Alcott. Platinum blonde, early 30s, eyeliner sharp, enough to slice. Her bob cut looked like a warning sign. She didn't even look up. "Do you have an appointment?" she snapped. "No, ma'am," I said as politely as I could, "but I'd appreciate—" She cut me off with a flick of her hand like I was static on a radio. Then, loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear, she muttered to her co-worker, "Betty's here to cash someone else's check or file another complaint we can't help with." A teenager in the waiting area glanced at his mom, awkwardly, aware of the tension. I blinked, weighed my options, and decided to give her one more chance. "I can wait," I said calmly. "But I'd still like to speak with the manager." She let out a dramatic sigh and rolled her eyes hard enough to qualify as cardio. "Sir, unless you're a client, the manager doesn't take walk-ins." She was done with me. "I'm not here to make a withdrawal," I replied. She squared her shoulders. "Then what are you here for?" "Because I don't really have the patience today." Before I could answer, a voice cut through. Eduardo, name. Tag shining, late 40s, client services rep, stood in the doorway with arms crossed. "Is there a problem?" he asked, calm but firm. Megan waved him off without breaking her gaze from the monitor. "I've got it, Eduardo." He didn't budge. I turned back to Megan. "Please, just the manager, that's all." She slapped a clipboard on the counter. "Fine. Write down your name. Someone might get to you in an hour." I didn't touch it. Instead, I opened my folder and slid a paper across the counter. The atmosphere shifted. Conversations quieted. A nurse shuffled on her feet. Megan tried to play it cool. "This is about a complaint," she began. "It's not a complaint," I said. "It's documentation." She cut me off again. "If you're not on the schedule, and you're not depositing anything, then you'll have to wait like everyone else." From the coffee station, someone muttered, "She's talking to him like he's a child." Megan heard it. So did I. But she kept going, tapping the paper aside with a perfectly manicured nail. "If you're not going to sign in, I'm going to have to ask you to move." I turned to Eduardo. "Would you mind taking a look at this?" He stepped forward without hesitation. Megan tried to stop him, but Eduardo gave her a look that froze her mid-motion. He scanned the paper, and his expression shifted fast, eyes widening. "This is from corporate," he said. Megan's face paled slightly. "What?" Eduardo didn't answer. He looked again at the signature. "I think you should get Brian. Now." Megan hesitated, but the cracks were showing. She picked up the phone and spoke in hushed tones. The room held its breath. Even the people waiting began watching, openly. One man gave me a nod, maybe respect, maybe curiosity. Eduardo leaned in and said quietly, "We don't usually get corporate visitors here. Didn't recognize you, sir." "That's the idea," I told him. Megan heard that. "You're with Guardian State?" she asked, her voice smaller now. I didn't answer. No need to. A young teller named Terrence excused himself from a customer and slipped back behind the counter. I noticed his phone discreetly recording. The teenager whispered, "Is he like an undercover boss?" His mom replied, "He doesn't need to be undercover. Just look at her now." That's when the door opened again. Judith Emery walked in. Power suit, clipboard, no-nonsense energy. Megan perked up fast and put on her customer service smile. Judith shut it down. "I'm not here for a transaction," she said before turning to me with warmth and familiarity. "Good to see you again, Elliot." Megan stood frozen. She clearly had no clue who Judith was, but she knew enough to be scared. Judith glanced at her and then said, "Looks like you're already making an impression." She sat down by the window and began taking notes. The energy in the lobby flipped. I wasn't just some cranky old man anymore. Megan was out of her depth, and she knew it. I didn't need to say a word. Finally, the branch manager appeared. Brian Coington, tall, composed, in his late 50s, gray flecks in his hair, glasses hanging from his collar. His eyes moved from Megan to me, and you could feel the temperature drop. "Mr. Dandridge," he said with measured respect. "Brian," I replied. The room went still. He shook my hand, firm and steady. "We weren't informed of your visit. I like to keep things simple. Surprise visits let me see what's real." Brian nodded. "Understood." Megan, scrambling, blurted out, "Wait, he's not just from corporate." Brian cut her off. "We'll speak later." Then to me, "Would you like to come to my office?" I motioned to the paper. "I already submitted documentation that explains why I'm here." Eduardo handed it over. Brian read it, his jaw tightening. "Follow me, please." As we turned, I asked, "You've got cameras in this branch?" "Yes, sir. 6-point coverage," Brian answered instantly. "Good. I'd like to review this morning's footage." He didn't even blink. "Of course." Megan stepped forward, her voice cracking. "Mr. Dandridge, I didn't mean anything by it. I just didn't know." I looked at her, not with cruelty, just honesty. "You meant exactly what you said. That's the problem." I left her standing there, shrinking in place, and I rolled forward toward the footage that would show exactly what kind of culture she helped create. We sat and watched the footage in silence. "This is illegal," I said. Brian nodded. "Already taken care of." He looked exhausted, like a man who'd finally stopped making excuses. "I've let Megan slide before. She was sharp, her numbers were good. But today, this was different." He didn't need to explain more. Out in the lobby, the atmosphere was heavy. Megan stood with her arms crossed, chewing on invisible excuses. Judith quietly told the room, "That man owns part of this bank." The reaction was instant. Clients stared. Even Mr. Fairley, a 20-year customer, was stunned. "And he let her speak to him like that?" he asked. Judith nodded. "That's how he operates. He watches before he acts." Megan looked around, desperate for backup. No one came. Eduardo simply said, "We both heard what you said, Megan. It was a joke," she snapped. "Were you laughing?" he replied. She had nothing left. Then Brian returned. "Come with me," he said. She tried to talk her way out. His tone didn't allow it. Behind closed doors, Brian showed her everything. Footage, complaints, a clear pattern. "You meant what you said," he told her. "You just didn't mean to be caught." Her badge, her login, her future, they were gone. She walked out quietly, coat in her arms, not meeting anyone's eyes. No drama, just the sound of a life shifting lanes. I asked Brian to bring the team. 6 employees stood before me. I didn't rise, just spoke evenly. "I don't come to trap anyone. I come quietly to see how people treat someone who looks like nothing." I looked around. Today I wasn't a client or even a person. I was a problem, until power was revealed. That shouldn't be the trigger for respect. They listened closely. Dignity isn't policy. It's a choice. Then Clarence, the janitor, stepped forward. "Thank you, sir," he said. "In 30 years here, I've never seen anything like that. Respect doesn't come from a title." I nodded. "No, it doesn't." Another staff member said softly, "I should have spoken up." I smiled gently. "Now you have." Judith met me at the door. "If you ever run for office, I'm your first vote." I chuckled. "No signs with my name on them." She said, "That speech, it'll stay with people. Let's hope their actions follow," I replied. Brian handed me an envelope, an apology letter from the branch. I didn't open it. That wasn't why I came. As I rolled toward the exit, a young client opened the door. "Have a good day, sir," she said. "You too," I replied, feeling the shift behind me. Inside, everything felt changed. Staff spoke a little softer, looked people in the eye. Judith called corporate and told them, "You don't need more training, you need more listening." That line climbed fast up the chain. By late afternoon, that same teenager came back with $5, ready to open his first account. "I like that guy," he said. He didn't even raise his voice. Terrence smiled and handed him a pen. "Best decision you'll make today," and that's where the real story lives. Not in who got fired, but in the quiet decisions. To listen, to act with dignity, to see people fully. As the sun caught gold on the lobby glass, Clarence mopped slower, staff double-checked details, and Brian stood alone in that still space, quietly vowing, "Let's make sure we never need a reminder like that again." Because power doesn't always raise its voice, and character is revealed when no one's watching.